Cool. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 147th Melbourne AWS user group. As always, I would like to start this with an acknowledgement of country. In the spirit of reconciliation, the Melbourne AWS user group acknowledges the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and their connections to land, sea, and community. Our in-person meetup is being held on the lands of the Wurundjeri people, and I wish to acknowledge them as traditional owners of this land. We pay our respect to their elders past and present, and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples today. I also, as usual, want to point out we have a code of conduct. It's a short version here, a longer version on the link that is nicely blocked out by my face. And now it's there properly. The very short version is be nice to each other. This generally means don't do things people don't want. If somebody says no to something, accept that. If you see somebody, if you are uncomfortable about something or someone, please reach out to myself or Rob. Rob is at the back handling all the audio and video. Or on this side is also an anonymous form that you can fill out. The same, if you see somebody doing things that you think are not good, please reach out as well. We all want this to be a happy environment, and that means everybody should be able to feel safe. Now, we're available on the web, our website. Obviously, you also know our meetup.com website, otherwise you wouldn't have RSVP'd for tonight. We're on LinkedIn, we're on Mastodon, and on YouTube, where you can find all our videos and the live stream. Again, if you're watching this live, you found the YouTube channel. For tonight, what do we have? Introductions, that's the fun bit I'm doing now, where I'm trying to make you not fall asleep. Then we have a What's New section, because we're a bit light on organizers tonight, that will also be presented by me. This is basically a short summary of everything that AWS gave us in the past month. Then we have Hasra talking about the key aspects of business analysis, and Joe will show us how to build a Git server in AWS with CDK. We'll close off with our usual marketplace segment, where anybody who's hiring can raise up their hand and say, hey, we're looking for people. For those of you new here, we do it that way around, so that if you happen to be here with your manager while you're looking for a job, you don't awkwardly hold up your hand and say, hey, I'm looking for a job. That might not always be appreciated. And then we wrap up, and everybody goes home and has a lovely time. I think I've got buses replacing trains. Have fun. During our talks, yes, you can ask questions, unless the speaker mentions it separately. Please keep questions until the end of the talk, because usually, or often, a question you might have might be answered on the next slide. If you're watching this live, please feel free to ask your questions either in YouTube chats or in the Slack channel. A link for the Slack channel will show up soon. Also, for those in the audience, We've got mics. If you have a question, raise up your hand. We'll bring a mic so that the people online can hear it as well. And for the recording too. As always, I want to thank our sponsors, our gold sponsor Mentor Group, our silver sponsor CEVO, and of course our venue sponsor NAB, who provide this lovely venue. Without our sponsors, it would be really hard to hold these events. Not only do we have no food or drinks, we wouldn't have a place to hold it. So we'd all be sitting home watching it like we did during COVID. Not always the greatest experience. I mentioned Slack. You can sign up for Slack just by going to this URL. It's a lovely website /Slack. We've got a bunch of different channels there to talk general. If you're looking for a job or hiring, the jobs channel might be of interest. And a volunteers. AWS outages channel, it might either be broken or there haven't been any outages. One of those two is far more likely. And announcements shows a stream of announcements coming through. We always love for people to get involved with the meetup. Obviously, showing up is a great first step. You can also speak. Both our speakers today are first-time speakers at our meetup. We love to see that. And I firmly believe that everybody here probably has a good talk inside them. Doesn't matter whether you are new to AWS or an experienced person, we can all learn from each other. We're not actively looking for sponsors at the moment, but if you think your company or yourself might be interested in sponsoring us, we've got yearly sponsorships. You can always reach out. And lastly, we're always looking for volunteers. Also looking for people who might be interested in joining the organizing committee. As I mentioned, there's only 2 of us here today. We're all very busy. Today was a bit with people on holiday and or sick. But yes, if you're interested, reach out. Upcoming events. Reinforce is happening 16th to 18th of June. Last month, I mentioned the All Builders Welcome Grant. That one is now unfortunately closed. I hope those of you who are interested in going and were able to apply for that did so. And otherwise, if you're going, I hope you'll have a great time. AWS Community Day for Australia in Brisbane this year. Myself and Matt, one of our other organizers, we are part of the organizing committee for this. Our call for speakers opened yesterday. Submit a talk. Come to the event. Do what you think is needed. We're looking to have a really great event. We're hoping to see a lot of people come up, and we're hoping to see a lot of talks being submitted. The call for speakers closes at the end of May, so don't wait too long with submitting your talks. Closer to home, Women in Cloud has a game night with AWS Builder cards in 2 weeks. Could be fun. I've heard about Builder cards. I've never played with it, but if you're interested, it might be worth checking out. The Well-Architected meetup has their next meetup on a very unfortunate date and time. Because first I'm going to recommend not to go to this meetup. You should be here instead on that day. And that brings us to what's new in AWS. In Melbourne, we've got the M7i Flex instances. These are slightly cheaper versions of the M7i. Basically, the Flex bit means that under the hood, AWS can move around things more, trusting that you probably overspec it and they run it on slightly cheaper hardware. Whether or not that is workable for your infrastructure, that's up to you, but the option is now available. I believe there's like a 15% price difference. So it's nothing new in Sydney, apparently. So we'll move on to containers. Nothing very exciting, to be honest. Maybe the community add-ons might be good. I haven't looked into it personally to see what kind of add-ons are there, but the other is not as much. But machine learning, Party Rock, that is AWS's let's play around and do what you can tool, which is completely separate from AWS, even with logins and interface and stuff like that. It introduced something called Image Playground, which uses Amazon Nova, which is one of the AWS LLMs. I had a quick look at this earlier. It allows you to quickly generate images. It's fine. Obviously, it's free, so in that regard, it might be better than some other solutions. I can also say it's definitely better than the Apple product of the same name, but that's not a very high bar. Other things, the interesting thing here probably is MCP support for QDeveloper CLI. MCPs is basically little short applications that you can have your LLM talk to get better information. I believe I saw that Stephen built one, no, that was Michael, was Wormsley. He built one to talk to the Power Tools, Lambda Power Tools documentation, so that your code will know, so your LLM will have up-to-date information. Those kind of things you can do with that. I'll be honest, I haven't tried it in Developer CLI. I'm not quite sure how much that kind of stuff I would do on the CLI. Other things, prompt optimization is good. I believe this allows you to what was this one? There's so much Gen AI stuff that I sometimes blank on which one is which. I believe this one allows you to have different prompts go to different LLMs under the hood, which can be good depending on what you need. On the networking side, a bunch of CloudFront things, really. CloudFront got some love. That apparently happens sometimes. Probably the most interesting one for some people would be the static IPs. For Apex domains, static IPs may be necessary for certain whitelisting purposes and stuff like that, especially in enterprise environments. Now you can have that for your CloudFront Apex domains. CloudFront generally would serve from about 700 different IPs, so this would make things easier. On the serverless sides, Lambda supports inbound IPv6 connectivity over private link. This is nice if you are actually using IPv6. Just out of curiosity, is anybody here using IPv6 in their infrastructures knowingly? A little bit, yeah. That's okay. It's only, what, 30-year-old standard by now? New keys for Event Bridge, Archive, and Replay. Well, the other things are not very. It was not a very exciting month. Sorry if that didn't come true yet. I'm guessing AWS also had some public holidays, just like all of us. Which one was interesting here? Again, nothing really exciting here. Unless you're into ONTAP and want to have autonomous ransomware protection. I'll be honest, I don't know what that means. I'm assuming it will somehow protect you against somebody coming in and blocking all your file systems and demanding money. Because instead you will pay all that money to AWS and NetApp. But that's it. Other things here. Yeah, so customer managed keys and slightly different prices. CloudWatch logs increases the maximum log event size to 1 megabyte. This is for a single event. So basically, like what you would usually send one line. If somebody ran against the odd limits, let me know. I'm very interested what kind of logs you're pointing. Some updates for SAM. Not very exciting. And CloudWatch Agent supports Rosa. Again, not very exciting. Other stuff. Everybody loves the well-architected framework. Nobody has ever fallen asleep about that. The well-architected tool got a makeover. Basically, the biggest update they've had so far. All good stuff, I'm sure. I haven't run a review since that change, but I'm hoping a lot of things that bugged me have been improved. And of course, well-architected framework has lenses. This is basically special key things for special use cases. There are serverless lenses, there are container lenses. And of course, there has to be nowadays a generative AI lens, so that was added. Well, Deadline Cloud has a macOS installer. I'm sorry. Don't care. The carbon footprint tool. Has anybody ever used this? Cool. I see two people. Basically, this shows you how much energy consumption and how badly your infrastructure pollutes the environment. This also has recommendations. The recommendations that AWS gives are, unsurprisingly, a lot of you should use ARM processors, you should use serverless infrastructure. That said, it's generally a good idea, it's a good thing, and I know a lot of companies and such have awareness around the carbon footprint of their compute. So it has some new features and updated methodology. Not entirely sure what new features. I didn't get the chance to go through all of these and see how they worked. But if it's something you're interested in, even if it's for your personal account, it's just fun to see whether you're using things nicely or not. And I believe that is it for the news. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to our first speaker, Asra. I'll give a quick intro while you're setting up. Ezra has more than 11 years of experience in information technology, specializing in banking and the finance sector in business analysis, software development, incident management, and customer service. That's a broad list of skills. So I'm very looking forward to this talk.
Hi guys. Cool. So today I'll be speaking on the key aspects of business analysis. I think Agent has just introduced me, so I'm Hazra Ali. I am a senior business analyst at UniSuper. I am a IIBA Melbourne event squad lead. I have 11 years of experience in IT, specializing in banking and finance, in business analysis, software development, incident management, and customer service. Now let's begin by a question. So I'm pretty sure all of us have worked on a project where we were involved heavily in development. We didn't realize much about requirements analysis, so we're just developing and then we deployed it and then it went to the stakeholders and they're like, really? Is this what we asked for? Why does it function like this? Why didn't anyone show us how it works before? Wait, is this the final product? So I'm pretty sure we all have been through this, and it's very common in our software development journey so far. I'm one of them, to be honest. Right, then comes business analysis. So business analysis is the practice of enabling change in an enterprise by defining needs and recommending solutions that deliver value to stakeholders. In summarizing this, it means we're trying to solve business problem. We're trying to enable change by defining requirements for the business. And we do this by recommending solutions, and the solution needs to provide value. So business analysis is all about change and value that can give to the business by solving that problem. Now the definition has been taken from BEBOK, which is IIBA standard. Now let's go back to our previous problem that we thought about, where we didn't do requirements analysis properly. We developed the application and then we just deployed it into production. So some of the techniques that we can use in order to solve those problems is through creating user stories. I'm pretty sure all of us know how user stories are structured and how we do it in Jira. We can back online. So we can also use acceptance and evaluation criteria. Making sure there we go, we're back online. Just a detour. Cool. So yeah, like I was saying, so we can also have story mapping, which is more about making sure we have different sprints, different backlogs, and we try and map them to different epics, different features. It's easy to categorize those stories when we bring them into different sprints, and that's where the backlog management also comes through. And most importantly is functional decomposition. So functional decomposition is breaking down of the functional requirements or the functionality of the software into different stories, into different tasks. Then it is easy to actually evaluate and actually identify which stories can be picked up by developers and how easy it is to develop and to test. So the effort in development and testing is also easier, and it's easy to deploy and deliver the solution. Now let's look at the different relationship between knowledge areas. The first one is strategy analysis. In strategy analysis, we're trying to solve the problem. So we identify the problem, what is it? And then we use different tactics, strategies to actually solve it. So the problem can come from top down, which is CEO to manager, or it can be from bottom up, which is manager to CEO. We create and get approval on business cases. We try and get our budget approved, so this is where we need the money. And we get this signed off by the CEOs, oh yes, this is the problem and this is how much we need. And also the resources that we need to fix it. Then we move over to business analysis, planning and monitoring. So this is where we plan on efforts and resources needed on the project. We plan the timeline as well for the project, how long it will take us. And then we move to elicitation and collaboration. So with elicitation and collaboration, it's about stakeholders. To get as much information as we can from stakeholders. And once we have those information, we try and evolve and get more things done. It's not my presentation, guys. It must be one of the projectors. So we do elicitation and collaboration through conducting workshops, facilitating trainings, and also doing interviews. So this is heavily involved in the communication skills that we need as a BA. The next one is requirements analysis and design definition. So this is where our structure comes into place. So all the hard work we have done so far, we try and validate and identify and verify the information, making sure it's correct. And then we identify the solutions, the potential solutions that we can get. And those solutions are actually needed for the business. And once we have those information, we try and actually see the potential values that we can get. And then we move over to requirements lifecycle management. So this is where we all come in. This is where the heavy thing of software development actually starts off. So most of us are developers, solution architects, or we are just testers or BAs. This is where we heavily come in and we start the development work, mostly in Agile. So we use Jira boards, we create our user stories, we maintain our backlogs, and we do our UATs. We show it to the stakeholders. Yes, this is what we have and this is how it look like. So back and forth, just like a normal development life cycle. And then the last one is solution evaluation. So once we actually have our solution, now it's the time to actually assess. Does the solution actually perform and provide value to the business? Does it actually solve the problem? And does it remove the barriers from the full potential that we need in order for the solution to work? So most of the time it is success. And yes, we have done well, which is very good. Well done. But sometimes that's not the case. So depending on different projects and how we actually work on them and the project management, sometimes projects have different phases. So you can have phase 1 where we do task 1 and 2. Phase 2 is more about task 3 and 4 and enhancements. So that's how we move about in seeing that our solution works and we can keep building on it. Now let's talk about a bit more about functional versus non-functional requirements. So functional requirements is more about specifying what the system should do, the behavior and the functionality of the system. Non-function is more about non-functional requirements and how the system should perform. Right. So I have functional requirements and its corresponding non-functional requirements. It might be a bit of interactive session. Maybe I'll ask you guys to just tell me. If you can't, it's fine. I'll just give the answers out. That's all good. So let's try the first one. So the functional requirement is system must allow users to view account balances and transaction history. Yes. The system non-functional would be, yes, it must respond to user requests to view account balances within 2 seconds. So, sorry? Yes, correct. Well done. It is performance. The next one is users shall be able to transfer funds between their accounts securely. Obviously, we need things to be secure. Implement strong authentication mechanism such as face recognition, passcodes, authenticator. Anyone knows this? Correct. Oh, you guys are so smart. The next one is the system must allow users to navigate through the interface, which means that the system is easy to use. New users can just come in and they can just start doing their tasks. They don't need formal training. Anyone knows this one? Yeah. You're right. Usability. Well done. The next one is the system must calculate and display interest on accounts. Yes, it should do that, and it should guarantee that it's 99.9% uptime, ensuring users have access all the time. Anyone for this? Correct. It is reliability. Awesome. Let's move more into artificial intelligence in business analysis. Using prompts to create user stories in correct format. I'm pretty sure we all have used AI by now. It's the in thing so far. And we use it in business analysis as well. It makes our lives easy. You can just use AI prompts or AI assistant through voice recognition to create user stories. You can say, hey AI, create a user story for my requirement. And there you go, it does. You just have to put in a few more prompts and you have your stories all ready, neat and tidy to be put into Jira. And I'm pretty sure we all have used Copilot, ChatGPT, Gemini. So these are some of the tools I would use in my business analysis. Now, as we have artificial intelligence, that comes about emotional intelligence. So if we use artificial intelligence, means most of our work is done by AI, right? We just need to enhance it, make it look nice, use it. Then it helps us to do emotional intelligence. How? It reduces our stress, anxiety of dealing with complexity. It improves our decision making. We don't have to think too much. It increases our efficiency with less errors. Most of the things are accurate as long as we know what we are after. And since AI is helping us to do most of the technical bit, we have more time to do people task, which is building better relationship with the project team members. And as we create our bonding with the stakeholders and the development team, that makes life easy. As we all know, if you know people, you can get things done easily, right? Now, let me give you a scenario. A situation, a project where ATM software was developed on AWS. So what happened in this project is that we were trying to push through the AWS ATM software from the on-premise onto the cloud, which was AWS. The software was developed and deployed into production. Good. And there was no documentation of the processes. Initial development team left the project. Only few team members knew about the project on some of the workflows, not all of them. No trace of requirements, scenarios used to build the solution. And then the stakeholders questioned the solution, the software that was developed. A lot of up and down in the project. And then the project manager brought a BA into the picture to solve that problem. And that BA was myself. And having not much prior knowledge on AWS, it was a challenge for me. But I was a good BA. I am a good BA. And that helped me to realize that yes, let's make this happen. Let's take the challenge. So what did I do? I said, right, I'll start with the backward traceability to identify my requirements. Backward traceability is all about we have the solutions and now we're going back to identify the possible requirements or the possible solutions or scenarios that would actually have created the solution as it is at the moment. Then I checked with the project managers, product owners, and developers to see if they have any form of email trails that will point for me to find out the starting point of the requirements. I started documenting processes, workflows from first day. I was given a blank page on Confluence, nothing. And then I started to actually schedule through all my information from day one. Any discussions I had with the stakeholders or any discussion I had with the development teams, I started putting things together. My workflows, my descriptions, my Lambda functions, all the terminology I could learn. And the good thing was that the project team were very good. The stakeholders also were good. And I was able to create things and get it verified as well. So that helped me to keep building on. Rather than stopping, I kept on building on and it turned out to be a good documentation. Yep. And then what I did is that I started putting on my business analyst hat and started using my BA skills. I created process flow diagrams. And as we know, when we have diagrams, it's easy to visualize and easy to follow. So it was easy for me to show it to my stakeholders. Oh, this is where the file comes in, this is the process, and we get the report. It was very easy. But for the developer, it comes through an S3 bucket. It runs a Lambda function. It goes through a glue job. It does a workflow. It goes to the database. And then we have an output. So it was easy to explain to both the parties. And then I did my my stakeholder analysis performance. So that helped me to realize what level of knowledge do they have about the project. Do they know more or do they know less? Because the level of information I provide to them will determine will they accept the solution which was already available. Then I did gap analysis because I knew my software is already there, but the possible scenarios I've identified, do they match? Does the solution actually outperform the requirements I've got, or is it vice versa? And then I did my risk assessment. Since we all know it's ATM, it deals with money, it needs to be safe and secure, right? And AWS is a good cloud provider. It's a safe cloud provider, and I think it was a good solution to use them. Other than that, so I did start off with less information on AWS. It was a good project for me to learn, to enhance. I used my AIs, my ChatGPT, my Copilot, and I also use my emotional intelligence to do most of my work in creating my user stories, my documentations. And this helped me to spend more time with the team, to spend time with my stakeholders, to spend time with my development team, and to build the trust relationship between them. I was able to obtain sign-off very quickly because the solution I provided to them after my solution evaluation actually helped them to realize, oh, yes, this is exactly what we want. In fact, the solution that was developed outperformed the requirements. And it was a very good solution, which was not seen at the organization. So with the right business analysis techniques and skills, I was able to deliver the project successfully. And till today, I think in my organization, they still see me and my name on all the documentation since I initiated it. Now let's do a bit of basic AWS services. I'm pretty sure most of you guys know this. So this will be an interactive session as well. Let's start with the first one. So monitoring and managing AWS services. Anyone? That's all right. It's called Amazon CloudWatch. Yep, these are very simple, guys. You don't need to put in more effort. It's very quick. Reliable and scalable storage. Awesome. Well done. We have machine learning capabilities. Yes, there's a few options. Believe me, I did not try to confuse you. I just made it as simple as possible. Yeah, so that's to do with the SageMaker. And then we have the serverless data integration service. It's my favorite actually. Something I learned. Glue jobs. And then we have serverless compute service that lets you run code without provisioning or managing service. Correct. Yeah, well done. Good job, guys. You're a very interactive crowd. Right. So additionally, if you want to learn more about business analysis, I would recommend going to the International Institute of Business Analysts, which is IIBA. Australian chapter website. They have heaps of content about business analysis you can read through. And there's some certifications as well if you like to do, and as well as become a member. There are also some Udemy courses, really nice ones done by Ego, and he also runs a website on analystcorner.org. They're really nice content, but please do not limit yourself to this. If you're really interested in business analysis, there's a lot of content out there, and business analysis skills are not only for a business analyst, it's for anyone, to be honest. Once you acquire the skills, it's very useful in your role, because we are all here to solve problems and to provide solutions, and that should be our main focus in any project that we work on. Cool. So you can scan the QR code and connect with me on LinkedIn if you like. Now I'll just take some questions.
Any questions?
Yep.
Hey, sorry. With the project that you were talking about,
Yep.
I guess I'm just curious as to how it was working with the different teams. Like, so for example, the developer team, it sounds like they hadn't been involved with it, or very few of them. How did they feel about you? I mean, I guess you're helping them by providing them with some context, but
Yep.
were they also able to sort of help you a bit with your detective work and look at, how had things been implemented, or how did that all sort of work for you, I guess?
Yep. That's a very good question, actually. To be honest, this is one of my favorite projects I worked on. So I was new to AWS, and the project team who initially developed, most of them were gone. So there was only one developer available, and the solution architect also was new. So most of us were new, and we were all working together, helping each other as much as we could. So it was just myself, the developer, and the solution architect. We were just brainstorming and trying to find out possible solutions, how it looks like, how's this, because they are the domain experts. And I'm like, yes, I can get this done, and understand it in an easier way, because then I have to explain it to the stakeholders, the business users, because they are the ones who need to say, yes, we want it, and they will sign it off. So we all worked together, to be honest. Even though we didn't have much knowledge, we all tried our best. We did our research. We reached out to other teams in the organization to see if we can get that information. And I think it's more about the people touch that you have, because sometimes, even if you don't know anything and you're kind to someone, they will help you. And I think that worked for me. Yeah.
Thanks for the good presentation.
Thank you.
I was curious, what's your tool of choice for diagramming? Because there seems to be, like now Lucid seems to be quite popular, and then there's Draw.io, there's also Visio. So yeah, I was interested to know what is your choice?
Well, to be honest, because in a corporate organization, we have limited choices, right? So Visio is main thing to go to. Or otherwise we use Confluence, because Confluence has that option for glyphy diagrams. So that's also a drop down where you can choose and you can create your, it's not as that best, but it's something you can do and work with, because it depends on the organization you work for. If it's my personal choice, I'll just go with, I think Visio is fine with me so far. Yep.
Thanks for the presentation. I guess with all these tools coming up, how do you see the BA role evolving over the next 3 to 5 years?
Well, that's a very good question, actually. I just recently ran one of my IIBA event, and in that event we learned a lot about embracing AIs and how BAs come in, because the main challenge here is that AI taking over everyone's job. Which is not true, actually, to be honest. We need to enhance, we have to work together, we need to upskill ourselves. So, to be honest, BAs will always be there. And like I said, you don't have to be a BA to have a BA skills. BA skills is very important, even if you're a developer or a tester or solutions architect, to be honest. Personally, I was a developer before I became a BA, and these skills really helped me to understand those technical bits and pieces, and also my people skills and the skills of actually solving the problem. So you need to have quite a few of these, and just learn and grow. And yes, business analysts will still be around. I think we all need business analysts. Yeah.
One more.
Yeah, totally agree about the business analyst. You definitely will be around. And yeah, I totally agree that emotional intelligence, that what makes you guys very valuable. Yeah, because that's how you make your job done. Anyway, going to the question. AI, very powerful tool, especially for your job. But what about security? Let's say ATMs and bank, yeah, definitely have very high requirement for security. How much can you share with AI so it creates you a very valuable and easy to move around user stories, as an example?
Yep. I think that is also a very nice question, to be honest. Yeah. Because we work in a very secure environment, and most of our applications, like Microsoft applications like Copilot, so they are enhanced within the organization. So it's very secure before it gets rolled out to different people within the organization. So it is considered secure to use. ChatGPT, I would say it's blocked. But Copilot is the go-to tool at this stage. Yeah.
So pretty Copilot and inbuilt security policies, which Microsoft introduced for us, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, definitely makes sense. Thank you.
Cool.
Cool. Do you have a question or no? No? Cool. Then that's it.
Cool. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Ashra.
Thanks.
Then next up we have Joe.
Who knows what Git? Everyone knows what Git is, right? Everyone uses Git, right? Cool. Who knows who invented Git? Yep. 1, 2. Okay, we've got a few people. So the person that made Linux invented Git, Linus, right? Who knows who invented the PR, the pull request? Does anybody know who invented the pull request? We've all had a pull request, right? We all know what a pull request is. So GitHub invented the pull request, not Git. Okay, so not many people understand the difference between Git and GitHub. People kind of blend the two, but GitHub built a whole product on top of Git, and they invented pull requests, and everyone's used them. Everyone likes them. Wrong answer. Pull requests are a little bit controversial. A lot of people believe that they introduce a lot of waste and waiting time. And if you know much about like sort of lean manufacturing and where agile kind of came from, one of the tenets of waste is wait times. So PRs, basically you sit there, who's got open PRs now that they've been waiting for days? Yeah, waiting for days for people to look at and figure out, right? So this project that I'm going to demo, I had a friend who's working at another company, and he was telling me, like, he had a lot of new developers, and he's like, I'm trying to tell them to do sort of trunk-based development. You don't need to do a PR. We can just do feature toggles, and we can work in a trust environment. And he goes, they really want to do pull requests. And I said, well, what if they had no option? what if the tool that you use didn't allow pull requests? So that's where I kind of thought to myself, okay, well, I want to try and figure out if like how easy or difficult that would be. It was a pet project. This is not something that is deployed in any sort of production environment. So it's very easy. All you need to do is, so I did a POC, right? So I just basically created that bad? Okay. Okay. Hello? We're back. Okay, we're back. Whew. Okay, cool. All right. That's a nice omen. So I thought to myself, like, okay, well, and I said to him, I go, what if you used a tool that didn't have it, if that tool exists? Because most of the SaaS products that do code hosting, they offer pull requests, right? So, and as far as I'm aware, the last time I looked, I think you have to do some branch configuration rules. Anyway, it's a little bit convoluted. So I thought, okay, how do you do it? Right. So I did it. I spun up an EC2 instance and I did a bit of research and / asking AI. And essentially what you need to do is really this much. And if you want to make a Git server, all you need to do is do brew install Git, like or yum install apt install Git, right? Like it's there. It's a server. So there's a hook that you just need to do and just say, hey, when someone tries to push to my server, if the branch isn't equal to main or the default name or whatever it is, just reject it. And that's it. That's all it was. And then I thought to myself, okay, we've all had little toy projects at work or whatever. Like at what point would I be comfortable using this at a place of employment, right? Because that's the next thing, right? Like for instance, if I was to, a lot of people tend to create tools and not understand that you can't just deploy it into a production environment for an organization. There's a lot of things you need to consider. So this is a bit of an experiment in all those things you need to consider. And for me, wanting to play a bit with CDK as well. So I'm going to try and give you, who's used CDK? Yeah? Okay, cool. So I'll try and gloss over it as much as I can, but I won't go into too depth, but cool. Okay, so I'll start by, and I'm going to do a live demo, so I'm praying this stuff works. Okay, so I'll talk to you about, I use a few different tools. So CDK, I'm using the TypeScript version, so you need NPM. I'm using Chekhov because I don't want to remember cloud security. I want something to tell me about it and tell me when I'm doing it wrong and when I'm doing it right. So Chekhov is a tool that I've used before. It's quite good. I'll explain a little bit about that later. Cool. So all I've done here is I've cloned this into, this is really hard because I have to hold the microphone. I've cloned this into a repo, and I'm just going to start by, you need to generate SSH keys, right? So when you SSH into a server, because I'm using Git over SSH, you need keys, right? So when you connect to a server, it says here's a fingerprint of the server. So if you have multiple servers, you need to make sure you're not always accepting the same fingerprint. So I'll make some keys. Next, I'm going to run a. Oh, okay. So I'm not going to do this part because I've already got my in the user data. I have to, like, if I'm going to connect to it via SSH, I have to authenticate myself. So I've got my public key in the code. So my public key is there, so it can accept connections from me. And next, I'm going to deploy the VPC. And while that's deploying, I'm going to cross my fingers and I'm going to explain a little bit about what's going on. So I'm using a CDK has constructs, so you can deploy resources or you can deploy constructs, and this is a VPC construct, so it does a lot of things out of the box, and this feedback is really good compared to CloudFormation. I know it's a little bit squashed for the resolution, but it really tells you sort of what is it going to do. It's going to create all these things. It's going to create a Lambda. I'll tell you about it later. Security groups, VPCs, and things like that. So I'll let that go. So in the code, I'll just do a little bit of a show into lib here. So it's really quite cool. You just have to you just need to create a construct from the library, and then you just have to give it a bit of configuration, which is basically, creating two subnets, a public and a private, and I do an instance connect endpoint. That's just to get in there. But there really isn't much to it. It's just kind of saying, which AZs do I want? and create some CloudFormation outputs. Now, this has done a lot of heavy lifting, which is really good. Like, you know, and it does. And the other thing that that I discovered about CDK that was really cool was that it does a lot of it's got like a Lambda in the background that does some security updates, which you'd have to do manually if you're using CloudFormation. So it's really quite helpful to get some things done. Okay, that's still going. I'm gonna have to blast through this because I think I might be right on the edge of time. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll go back and I'll describe what I'm actually deploying while it's deploying. So essentially what we're going to do is we're going to create we're creating a VPC now, which is not what I'm showing in this diagram. But what we're going to do is we're going to create 2 EC2s based off Amazon Linux 2 with a shared EFS volume. All right. So the reason why you need a shared volume is because you may connect to a different EC2 instance when you're doing your git push or git pull. So it needs to be working off the same volume. And we're gonna spin up 2 instances. We have a network load balancer because SSH works on network protocol. You don't need a application. You don't need a ALB for this. And you can bring your own DNS, but I'm just going to use the NLB DNS name for now. I've got a bucket which we store some scripts, which we store one script which we use to create the repos, and some SSM parameters that hold the public keys and the private keys that the instance will then download to register itself to sort of say, hey, this is my identity when you SSH to it. So each instance will not give you that fingerprint prompt every time you connect to it. And then finally, we've got like I thought to myself, like, well, you know, if I was deploying this in an environment, I would in like a work environment or production account, I would want some form of backup. You know, even though Git is distributed, so that's the killer feature of Git. Git is meant to be a distributed version control system, so you're not relying on a server to be online all the time for you to be able to make changes. But the EFS backup will just back up the EFS volume, the disk that disk drive, you know, every couple of hours or so. Okay, we've got a VPC. We're in business. Okay, so next we're going to create the application stack. So the application stack is essentially going to create all those things that I showed you here. So let me just kick that off with the, I called it Trunk Hub because people call trunk-based development, you know, committing to trunk, and hub like GitHub. So, you know, I don't know, it was just a silly name. Okay, so we're going to deploy the app stack. So there's 3 stacks. There's the VPC, the app, and the backup. So let me paste that in. Cool. While this is deploying, I'll talk about. So here we're doing some security groups. I'll show a bit of code, and then so it's all create stuff. So yeah, that's fine. Okay, if I show some private keys or private keys or stuff like that, they're all going to be gone after this. So you know, people online, you have a challenge to mine as much Bitcoin as you can in that time. We're creating. Okay, so I'll go back to the code. So if we look at this stack, which is in, I'll go over here, and I'll go into the library. So this was the one where there was a lot of things to create, right? So you need to. It was pretty straightforward. You kind of just import the libraries of the resources that you want. So I couldn't use a construct for this. I had to use the resources themselves because I was kind of very specific with what I wanted. You create keys. You can put dependencies. It's all pretty much here's a resource I want to create, and here's the parameters, right? And here's the description. Here's the properties of it, right? So it's really not that complicated. There's not a lot of real sort of complicated things to do. You're just kind of listing out the things, and then you kind of, if something depends on something, so you have to create it first, get a reference to that, and put it in there. So I won't go through all these things, but you can see there's just a long list of sort of things that I want to create. Another good thing about CDK is that in CloudFormation, like if you want to do user data or a script, you have to like stick it in a base64 encoded JSON in part of the YAML or part of the JSON. And like, has anyone done user data in a JSON CloudFormation file? Like, it's awful. It's really, really frustrating. With CDK, because you don't get any of the syntax highlighting, you don't get any of that stuff. But with CDK, I can just actually, because it's code, I can just say, hey, go read a file that exists in here, which is this user data script. and I can write this script like a script file and then just point to it in the CDK and say, just read the file and make it the user data. And it was really useful. So in the user data, there's not a lot going on. It's really just get the mount volume ID, mount the EFS volume, do some, ownership, stuff with the files, with the private keys. That's my public key there. So, that's me. So it knows it can authorize me to connect to it. It also does, what else does it do? It gets the parameter. Oh yeah, it gets the certificates and the public and the private keys and sets them up, and it restarts the SSH daemon. So it's not really that complicated. Let me go back here. We're still creating in progress. Cool. So one thing I want to highlight, I used Copilot as well. And unlike previous presenters saying AI was helpful, AI was not helpful in this case. And the reason is that a lot of what I believe the way AI works is that there's a lot of pattern matching. And when I was writing a lot of the resources for back here, I'll go here. When I was writing a lot of these app resources, because I hadn't really used a lot of CDK before and I was just kind of figuring things out, it would make up resources. It would make up properties and these things. And I had to sit there and I had to go back to the docs and figure out, does this thing actually exist? Because I'm getting all these red squiggly lines everywhere. And they didn't. And it kept doing that. And I didn't know how to stop it from doing that. So be aware that sometimes when it comes, because what I believe is that there's a lot of patterns going on here, right? So you can see, there's naming conventions, there's properties and things like that. So when I would ask it to say, hey, do such and such and make sure it links to this thing and that thing, it would invent things, and it did it very frequently. So a little bit of warning there. I didn't use Amazon Q. It might be better, I don't know, but we'll see. Cool. Okay, so we've created the app stack. Right now, there is one thing we need to do here, is that because I haven't uploaded the keys into the parameter store, it's going to create some instances. So they've created them here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to upload my keys via a script, which is in here. So I've got a script, and all the script does is it takes those keys that I generated, and it puts them in the parameter store or secret store. So that when the instances boot up, it can download them. So now they're there. So what I'm just going to do is I'm just going to kill these two, and then they'll come back up. Terminate, delete instance. Yep. Okay. So while we're waiting for that, I'm just going to do the last part of the creation, which is basically the backup EFS backup policy. So now every 6 hours or whatever I've configured it for, it'll take a snapshot of the EBS volume, and it'll create a backup so that you've got some confidence that if all the infrastructure blows away, I've got some sort of backup stuff there. So I'll wait for that to go. So that's creating, it's just creating a role that it assumes, and then it creates a backup policy so it can take a backup of the EFS. This type of feedback with CDK is so much better than the vanilla AWS CLI. You've got switches in here that you can make it less colorful and more, not better suited to CI. But it's just really helpful, because I think when you deploy infrastructure, it's critical to understand what's being changed, what's being deleted, recreated, because those things may result in downtime. Okay, so that's done there. Cool. So all we need to do now is wait for these instances to come back online. And they're initializing. And then I can do the actual test to see if I can create a repo. So there are a few caveats with this. It's not exactly how I would want it. Like, you have to, you'll see now when you create a repo, you actually have to connect into the instance and initialize the repo with a script, because each repo has to have a hook in it that will reject the branches if you try to push a branch. So if I was in production, I'd probably clean that up a little bit, make it a little bit easier to do so. But let's see what we can do. So I will wait for that. This just trying to think, is there anything else I wanted to talk about with this? Yeah, it's really very, very lean. I think the biggest thing I would also talk about with CDK is that it does have a concept of test. So, and it's a little bit controversial. So I don't know how much people understand about sort of, testing and unit testing, but ideally you don't want to be testing a library that you pull in as a dependency. Like that's not something that you can control the behavior of. So CDK does a lot of it's. I've actually written some tests. You can actually, because all CDK does is output CloudFormation. It doesn't actually do anything else, because AWS only understands CloudFormation. But oh no, go away. CloudFormation. What was I talking about? Yeah, the testing. That's right. So I got tests in here. Now, I thought about this. It's like, should you be writing these tests? And I think it's probably better to try and do some testing, because I think you want to promote. If you're in these teams, if you're in like DevOps teams or infrastructure teams or development teams that maintain their own infrastructure, you should be encouraging an environment of testing and quality. So I wouldn't go too heavily on these tests, but I would make sure that, for instance, with the VPC, I would make sure that the key things are there. So if you look at what is this, Trunk of Beware app? Oh, maybe this is it's like when the VPCs create, it creates with the expected resources. So I have one VPC, I have this CDIR, I have one NAT gateway, one this, one, you know what I mean? So you can do some testing, but there's not really much you can do about this because CDK generates the code, right? CDK is the thing that's doing the thing. But anyway, it's good to have. You should do it if you can, but I wouldn't go too heavily on this. I would just make sure that, like, at a higher level, the main bits and pieces are there. Cool. So I will check if our instances are there. We've got one that's up and running, and that should be enough. And the other one's it's booting up. Cool. So we'll try it with one. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to connect into the instance, which I do by this, and go connect. And I'm going to just run a script to create an empty repository. And I do this by running new git repo and a name. So I've got a script that does that. That will create that repository, and I'm going to call it, I don't know, just AWS foo AWS. Oh, I missed the first part. All right, so it's just initialized a blank git repo. Cool. Okay, so I need to go get the load balancer DNS name. Cool. Okay, so the last thing I'll do is I'll clone this and test the cloning. Cool. So I'll just replace that. So this should be me cloning from that repository that I just. Oh, it's not foobar. It's foobar AWS. Okay, so it's saying you're connecting to this machine you've never seen before. I say, yeah, that's normal. I say, yep. Ooh, you got to type yes. Okay, yes. Okay, and it's okay. So you appear to have cloned an empty repository. CD AWS. Foo AWS. And okay, so I got an empty repository. I'm just going to touch text.txt. And git commit file git push. Cool. Okay, so I've pushed some stuff to my Git server. Okay, I want to make another change, right? So git branch. Git checkout. What am I doing? Checkout dash B. Let's call it foo. All right, and I want to edit the file, and I'll say something. Doesn't really matter. We save it. We add it, and we commit it. blah. Okay, and now we git push, but I'm gonna have to write all this stuff here. Yep, cool. And there you go. It rejected it. So that's the demo. That's the thing. So and it rejected it, right? Well, thank you. So and the thing is that that'll that doesn't matter which instance it hits because there's a shared EFS volume. It'll I think Git will handle any race conditions. Like it's built for that type of stuff. So it's really that. I also did a little bit of a cost analysis. So this was it running by itself with no traffic, and it's about $5 US a day, $4.30 US a day, not including tax or whatever other fees AWS charge. So that's relatively cheap, but I would imagine that the traffic would then increase more costs. Cool, 23 minutes. That's it. That's really my thing. CDK is pretty cool if you can use it. I would suggest it over CloudFormation to begin with. But CloudFormation's okay. But yeah, any questions? Yep. Microphone.
Hi, thanks for the amazing presentation. I was wondering, what's the benefit of you putting a Git repo inside the EC2 instance?
Oh, that was just to initialize the repository, because when you initialize the repository, like I said, you need to have a hook in there that configures it to like this script here is the one that says new Git repo, and what it'll do is it'll create the repository, and it'll make sure that only the Git user on the instance, because when you SSH to an instance, it'll try and do stuff on your behalf, and it's the Git user that'll own the directory, and then you need to configure it to do the thing. So I didn't figure out how to do it remotely. I mean, you probably could do it remotely, but I just thought that would be the easy way. So that's the thing I really didn't like about this.
But in terms of like application purposes, like was it because of a specific requirement that you had to put the Git on an EC2 instance?
Oh no, that was just me picking that because I knew how to do it. One of the things I would do if I was to do this again, I'd probably use like ECS and containers. And you could mount the EFS volume to a container and use you could do that. Yeah. So there was no reason why I chose EC2 except for I know it a lot better than probably ECS at this stage. And the scaling, you could do traffic scaling as well, and it'll go up and down as per normal.
I guess perhaps there's a performance benefit of not having a container running on the EC2 instance.
Oh yeah, possibly. It depends. Yeah, it depends how you implement it. But possibly. But I haven't done any performance benchmarking. This was just me using CDK, and also this is how much more work you need to do to kind of get it into a production state. So there's a lot of things that you need to do. You need to consider. Like, who uses the default VPC in their AWS account? Like when you create a Lambda, use the default. Don't use the default VPC because you don't know how that's configured, right? So, how is that configured? Like we probably can find it out. Like it's probably information's probably there, but you should. It's probably better practice for you to create your own where you can control the security controls on it and know what's happening, and you can also you might need to do the thing that most organizations will need eventually is unique address space. So you need to get your CDIRs sort of, lined up as well. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries. Any other questions?
Yeah, thanks for the talk. I've noticed with pulling Git repos, SSH is the most common, but I think you can use HTTPS as well. I'm just thinking, did you ever muck around with trying to implement it on Lambda or something? Because I'm guessing if you could do HTTPS, or if you might even be able to API gateway Lambda, just out of interest, particularly when you're looking at the costing, if you've got some small internal repo, maybe pulling very infrequently, you could probably.
I don't know the answer to that. I haven't really looked into that, but I mean it'd be good to sort of figure it out. One of the reasons that I actually didn't do ECS, I remember now, was because I didn't want to manage an image. Right? I didn't want to manage an image. So and I know I know I'm using an image for EC2, but I'm just using the AWS default. Like I'm just using the AWS whatever one and just configuring it out of the box. Yeah, I don't know. Like you probably could. I don't know how GitHub do it. I don't know how GitLab do it. I don't know how all these other people do it at scale. I would imagine they probably started like this, some version of this, having some big beefy servers with a lot of resources and a shared disk, and then they just evolved from there to be more optimized. Like it all depends on your security model. Like do you want organization? How do you want to segregate your organizations and things like that? So yeah, I haven't taken that into account. I'm just like, can you create a tool that doesn't work, like doesn't give you the waste that PRs sort of give you? And then because if you take away that constraint, like if you take away that option from people, then the choice becomes easier. Like you won't have to worry about, do we do PRs or do we don't? No, we can't. So let's deliver work in progress changes in a different way. Cool. Any other questions?
Nope.
Awesome.
That seems to be it.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Joe. And that brings us to the end of the night. Hold on. Somehow got my slides messed up. I did forget to mention one thing that's coming up. Well, I had opened the wrong thing. A little event also happening in the next couple months. Sydney Summit. I would have felt very bad if I went home without mentioning it. It's obviously not as good as community days, unless you speak to somebody who's not me, probably. 2 days, both days have a different focus. You can go to both days or to one of them. In Sydney, it's always a lot of fun, a lot of people to talk to, a lot of sessions that you can learn from. It's free. I noticed there's also a live stream of it. I don't know what the live stream entails this year, whether it includes the sessions or if it's just the keynotes. It's always different per year. But yeah, if you can go. I'm sure quite a few people here will be going. But then our marketplace segment. Is anybody hiring? A deep silence. Oh, over there.
One sec.
One more.
Okay, thank you. So I work at a place called MYOB. They do business management software. I just checked the website before. There's a couple of DevOps roles, mid-level and senior level DevOps roles, I believe. And I think we've also got a graduate program as well. I think they've done their intake for this year, but you know, get in early for the next year if you want. Yeah, myob.com.au. I think. Yes. Thank you.
Cool. Nobody else? No.
I'm Daniel from NAB. We are running 2 intern programs this year. One in one in August and one in November. Applications are opening within the next 2 weeks and will be open for about a month. So not open yet, but if you are interested, the NAB Tech intern program is starting soon. So keep an eye out.
Cool. Well, with that, come to the end of tonight. I once again want to thank our sponsors, Mentor Group, CIVO, and NAB. And of course, I want to thank our lovely speakers, Ashra and Joe, who gave very interesting talks. There is food and drinks left. Don't make us carry that all by ourselves. I can tell you from experience, the food works perfectly as lunch tomorrow, or breakfast or dinner, whatever your preference is. So take some home, same food or drinks. Yeah, and try to pick up your rubbish. Yeah, true. We'll be moving. Yep. Cool. And we'll be back next month on the 28th of May, right here. So don't go to okay. No.